Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. During the next half hour, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth, a leading business advisor and two-time best-selling author, will cover topics that'll help business owners run their companies more profitably and more efficiently. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And I got to admit today, guys, I got a little trickery up my sleeve. It's right up this sleeve right here, a little bit of trickery. And that's a really bad dad joke pun, and you'll see why that is in a minute. But trust me, the Biz kids and Mrs. Biz would roll their eyes at that one for sure, and you probably will too. But we today have a special guest that is something we've, in almost 6 years of doing the show now, we've never had a guest on our show that is a magician. You get it? Trickery up the sleeve. You see what I did there? You picking up what I'm putting down. So our guest this week performed his first magic trick at the age of 2 years old, and is now an award-winning magician who is called the new face of magic by media outlets around the world. As a matter of fact, this summer, coming up very soon, he will appear in the ESPN Plus original series Banana Land. So we are very excited this week to have Mr. Jake Schwartz. Jake, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I love taking magic to places nobody thought it could go, and this is a great example of that.
Yeah, no, so when we talked way back, it's funny, when I talk to folks, sometimes they'll say, they'll pitch to come on the show or whatever, and they're like, oh, you have like a business show, so it probably won't work. And I'm like, no. Like anything that's, we can tie most things in. And when we cover business topics that are like technical business things, but we also cover stuff about wellness and mindset and just all sorts of different things, anything that would impact a business owner, entrepreneur, things like that. And I know when we talked, you had a very compelling reasons as to why it would work as well. And so that's why I was very excited. Again, I've been doing the show for 6 years. So it's always, challenging coming up with new angles and new ways and new topics and way to cover things. So why don't we get started, Jake? Tell us a little about your entrepreneurial journey and how you became Jake the magician.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started doing magic, believe it or not, when I was 2 years old. I was a super picky eater as a little kid. And so my parents would ask me to make my food disappear. Fast forward to now, I'm an international award-winning magician. I perform all over the world and, do all the things that you mentioned in the intro. My entrepreneurial journey really started at around 15, 16 years old. That's when I started my business full time. I had a realization at around 10 that I wanted to do magic with my life. I have a distinct memory, and there's a story that goes along with it where I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I have to do. I have to do this with my life. And that was around 10. So then fast forward to me as a high schooler, when I actually was able, and it made sense for me to start this business and do it on my own. And I literally went around from house to house in my neighborhood, shoveling the driveway off of people's, shoveling the snow off of people's driveways, not the driveway off the snow. I was shoveling the snow off of people's driveways. And that's how I paid for my first website. And, that was 7 years ago by now. Wait, does that math add up? I don't know. I'm 23, so do the math. But now I do magic full time, and it's just crazy, how much growth there is. But it all started back then at 16, shoveling the snow off of people's driveways to pay for that first website.
I love it. I had a similar story when I got started. I bought my first computer in a very similar way. I was delivering newspapers of all things, right? We just dates it how long ago it was, but nonetheless. The same thing. I was hustling to try to make the money to do what I wanted to do. So I got to ask, at 10 years old, when you have this sort of aha epiphany moment and say, I need to do magic, I need to make this part of my life, and that's what I want to do. What were your parents' reaction to that?
I'm very, very fortunate because my parents were really supportive. And I think if they weren't as supportive as they were, and they didn't raise me to be the way that I am now, I wouldn't be doing magic. If I had come to them and they very adamantly over a long period of time said, this is stupid, don't do this, do a safer path, I think I would have listened. I think I would have said, all right, I guess you guys know better than me. And I certainly wouldn't be where I am today, let alone even doing magic at all. And so to kind of give you a little bit of context, my dad's dad, my grandfather, hated his job. He came home every day. He lived for 5 p.m. and he lived for the weekends, and he dreaded pretty much every work day. He just hated his job. And my dad saw that, and he understood why my grandfather did it. He did it so that my dad and his sister and my grandmother could eat. That's what it was. He was the breadwinner. So he went out, he did his time so that they could eat. But he made a decision sort of as he was growing up that he wasn't going to be the same way. He wanted to do something that he was passionate about, that he loved. He wanted to enjoy getting up every day and find something that he cared about and find a way to make money at it. That thing for him was becoming a chiropractor. He was not your typical person that everyone said, yeah, you should definitely go to med school. He didn't really quite have the grades for it or the personality for it. And a bunch of people told him no. He wound up building one of the largest practices in Philadelphia. He now helps. This is neither here nor there, but the point is he did all of that so that when I came along, he said, I want you to do something that you are passionate about as well, even if it's not the traditional thing that everybody else is doing, that school teaches you you're supposed to do. He wanted me to do something that I was passionate about, that I cared about, that I truly loved. And that thing is magic.
Well, that's awesome. And kudos to your parents, because, man, there are people in my family that parent and they try to influence and push their kids in certain ways. And man, I'm a huge believer in that myself, of you got to let your kids do what they want to do. You can't live vicariously through your kids. You can't say, look, I have a close friend of mine who he is similar to what you were describing, your grandfather, and he just lives for the weekends and doesn't like his job. He's just checking the boxes every day. And he knows what he wanted to be when he was coming up. And I don't know why he hasn't switched. He's still a relatively young guy. But so now he's trying to push his son in that direction. He's trying to make his son go down the path that he wished that he would have taken. And I've talked to him a bunch of times. I'm like, man, you got to let them do what they want to do. So kudos to your parents for supporting it and allowing you to kind of think outside the box and not say, oh, well, you should go to college and you should study this. And you should, like you said, that safe path that so often I think parents kind of push their kids down along that path.
Yeah. And I was that kid who every time you came to the Schwartz household, there was some sort of show when I was growing up. And so at 5 or 6, I would like draw up my little tickets, and all the family and family friends that came to our house, they always got a show. And it's also funny too, because my dad was an athlete. He grew up, he played baseball, he played hockey as an adult, he played all the sports. And then I came out as a 5 or 6 year old, and he bought all my soccer equipment and my t-ball equipment. And we went to like one practice, and I came back and I went, yeah, I think I'm done with soccer. And he goes, what? I'm the coach. And I'm like, yeah, no, I think I'd rather just play my guitar and, do magic. And he was like, oh my God, I just spent all this money and now I'm the head coach. And now after one practice, you don't even want to do it. But, I wound up sticking that out. But to your point, he, has always been very supportive of me not doing the things that are in his wheelhouse, but doing things that he knows I'm passionate about.
Yeah. Well, again, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And it's a great lesson and a great reminder for all the parents out there. It's like, again, push your kids to do what they're passionate about. I remember having a conversation with our oldest when she was in 7th or 8th grade. They were doing some project, and she was going down all these occupations, and she was like, Dad, how much money will I make doing this? Dad, how much money I said, don't worry about that. Find what you like to do. Don't worry about it. And it was just a school project, but I didn't want her to even thinking about it from that perspective, even back then, that, if you find what you love to do, it's amazing. I mean, it's an amazing thing. Well, we're up against the break here. We're going to hit a break. We're going to continue talking with Jake Schwartz, and we'll get the Mr. Biz tip of the week at the start of the next segment, and we're going to find out more about Jake and his magic.
Business owners have a continually growing to-do list with little time for revenue-producing activities. With Check Off Your List and their experienced team of virtual assistants, you can focus on growing your business. Visit checkoffyourlist.com to learn how Check Off Your List's skilled team can handle your day-to-day tasks like social media, bookkeeping, calendar maintenance, and much more. Contact Check Off Your List at checkoffyourlist.com or call 888-262-1249 to see how their virtual assistants can help you live to work rather than work to live.
Thank you for listening to Mr. Biz Radio. Did you know our show airs 7 days a week for more than 30 hours now? If you are in the B2B space and would like to reach thousands of business owners every week, including our more than 250,000 social media followers, our thousands of daily internet radio listeners, our email list fans, and Mr. Biz Solutions members, email us at info@MrBizSolutions.com to become a sponsor. Tap into Mr. Biz Nation to help grow your business.
Check out both of Mr. Biz's national best-selling books, Pathway to Profits and How to Be a Cash Flow Pro on Amazon. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show, and it is time for Mr. Biz Tip of the Week. And this week's tip is a short one, but I think very impactful, and I think most of you will agree with this one. But hard work puts you where good luck can find you. Don't worry about luck. Don't depend on luck. Oh my gosh, this guy or this girl is so lucky. Oh my gosh, they lucked out. More than likely, they didn't luck out. There's probably a lot of elbow grease and a lot of work that went behind getting lucky all of a sudden. You hear about the 10-year overnight success, right? Elon Musk, great example. He had many failures in his career. Most people don't even know about him. But he was, he was a founder of two companies and got kicked out of the two companies that he had founded. This was way back before Tesla. This was before SpaceX, et cetera. But just it goes to show you, people see the end result. They see the Instagram pretty version. They don't know all the hard work that went behind it. So anyway, hard work puts you where good luck can find you. That is Mr. Biz Tip of the Week. And again, this week, we're talking with Mr. Jake Schwartz. His website, you can find out more at jakeofspades.com. That's jakeofspades.com. And of course, on social media, you can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, the good old TikTok, and LinkedIn. You can find him at The Magic of Jake Schwartz. The Magic of Jake Schwartz is his handle on those platforms. Definitely go out and follow him. And shares a lot of cool stuff out there. Many of his tricks, as you can imagine. So Jake, I guess let's segue in a little bit into. So you come through your teenage years. You definitely know you want to do magic. You shoveled snow to create your first website, et cetera. Where did you go from there? So how did you even get started in this? I mean, I can't even imagine. I'm thinking about it as a man my age. I can't imagine being a teenager and thinking, how can I get this thing off the ground? How did you get that thing going and get started?
Well, it reminds me of a story that when I was first starting my business, my dad asked me a question that I didn't quite comprehend at the time. And I didn't quite comprehend how important this is. And I think this is going to be of great value, especially to your listeners. He said, who do you want to perform for? Which seems like a very easy question, but it has a very difficult answer. And my question was, everybody. And my dad goes, no. Who do you want to perform for? Which is to say, who is your market? And one of the things that my dad has taught me, and now that I say all the time, is specificity is king. So when you're thinking about starting a business, the question is, who are you providing value to? And so for me, starting out in those early years, maybe it's the birthday parties or the summer camps or things like that are local and sort of already know me. And it's easy just to get on stage, just get in front of people, right? And like you said, the money doesn't matter quite as much. Just get in front of people, just do shows, get good at what you do, and get your name out there. But that is a humongous thing that I've had to think about, that I am always constantly, even now, thinking about who is my audience, who is my market, who am I marketing myself towards, who do I want to perform for? And I would encourage, if you feel like you're spinning your wheels in your business, to ask yourself that same question. Who do you want to perform for? Who do you want to give your service, your value, your product, whatever it is to? And the answer of, well, anybody that wants it is really not a good answer. You need to have some sort of specificity so you know how to tailor your marketing.
Yeah, no, I think it's great advice. And I've seen it many times. Exactly what you mentioned, Jake, is people, especially when they're starting out, right? And they're looking for money, they're looking for sales. And so they want to just try to cater to everybody. And it very rarely works because, as you mentioned, you can't tailor your message and your content and your service and whatever you do to everybody. You just can't do it. So circling back to you. So what was your answer to that question, Jake?
Well, I can tell you my answer now. I think that would probably be a little bit better. My answer now is I do a lot of corporate events. I perform for theaters, mainly in 18 and up, 16 and up type audience. And so I love doing magic for TV and on media platforms like this. And so that's really my market right now. I love doing magic for television, but also that corporate market and also theaters.
So when you go work with a corporate group, what's a sort of a typical engagement? What's that look like? Just for any of our listeners out there that, may have a company and say, gosh, this might be a great idea for me. What would something like that look like, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, usually there's one of two things that I offer. And look, there's a ton of different ways to do it. This is what I do. I either do what's called walk around magic, which is where I would mingle through the crowd in sort of a cocktail hour type setting. And I kind of call myself the ultimate icebreaker because I just love meeting new people. And so that's a great way to do that. You get to see magic right under your nose. And it's more of a mingling through the crowd cocktail hour type setting. The other option is, of course, your standard, what you would think of show. You have the audience and the performer.
Gotcha. Okay. So what's a typical, do you do this for all companies, any company size? Anything like that? Small companies, big companies, medium, all?
I would say usually I'm in the medium to larger company range, just for people who are having an event where they're going to have enough people to sit down, watch a show, or they're having some sort of sales meeting or, product release or whatever it is, where they're going to have an audience and they want to make that event even more memorable, show their employees, clients, et cetera, how much they mean to them. And that's why they'll bring somebody like me in.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No, I've seen it. I worked at JP Morgan for many years before I started my own entrepreneurial journey. And, many times they had different types of performers, comedians, magicians, et cetera, come through. And exactly what you described. I remember a couple of different times having where we had like an intro cocktail hour where it was kind of a networking type of thing. And exactly what you mentioned, Jake, someone like you was walking around and doing magic tricks and things like that, helping break the ice and getting people talking to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to sort of bounce off of that, people want to buy things that are meant for them. Like I went to Penn State. I want to buy a shirt that has a Penn State logo on it. I want it to be for me, not just for college students, right? And so I'm not in college anymore, but you get the point of what I'm saying. And so a lot of times I'll work with companies to talk about what their message is, what they want to convey to their clients, their employees, their franchisees, whoever's at that meeting, so that we can put a show together that embodies their message and is really fit for their groups, so that their employees, clients, et cetera, walk out of that going, oh my gosh, that magician was great. I learned something new. I saw something amazing, on and on and on. And so that's why specificity rules. People want to buy something that is meant specifically for them. And that's why it helps to be specific in your approach to marketing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Well, we've only got a little over a minute left here, but I got to ask you, so far in your entrepreneurial journey, Jake, what has been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
Ooh, that is a great question. The biggest challenge, I think, is staying motivated, because especially when you're in the entertainment business like myself, there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows. And for me, I think back to that moment when I was 10, when I decided this is what I want to devote my life to. And when those times get tough, that's what I think back to, that, I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to stop, that I was going to keep going no matter what. And so keeping sort of that mental focus through the highs and also the lows, try not to get too high, try not to get too low, keep a focus, keep trying to be better than you were yesterday. That's tough. And that's a daily thing that every entrepreneur goes through.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's very common actually. And it's myself as well. I left the corporate world, started my entrepreneurial journey. And what I learned along the way, and it was really helped me, is I make sure I celebrate the successes. And when I have a win, even if it's a small win, I celebrate it to help balance out, like you said, the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur. And you take a lot of losses. And so having the right mindset, mentality, and having, I call it consistent perseverance. When you get knocked down, you keep getting back up. If you don't have that, you're probably not going to be successful as an entrepreneur. You really have to have that mindset. And that's okay, but it's really, really important to make sure you have that. So again, this week, we're talking, guys, with Mr. Jake Schwartz. You can find out more at his website at jakeofspades.com. You can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, The Magic of Jake Schwartz. Come back, and he's going to help us talk through the 3 steps to creating a good magic trick, are the same 3 steps to achieving success in anything.
Are you ready to automate your business? Automation is the key to scaling a business and building wealth. It's also one of the most difficult things for a small business owner to do on their own. If you're looking for help with automation, Pulse Technology CRM can help. We have an exclusive offer for Mr. Biz Nation. We will build everything for free, even if it's a sophisticated funnel. Visit thepulsespot.com/Mr. Biz for this exclusive offer.
If you find listening to Mr. Biz Radio is helpful, imagine having live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also 5 other trusted business experts. It's true. You can have live access to your very own CFO, plus a business attorney, a website and digital marketing expert, a sales and growth guru, a financing professional, and a customer experience master. Visit MrBizSolutions.com to learn more. Join Mr. Biz Nation at MrBizSolutions.com.
To submit questions to the show, email them to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show, and we're hitting the pinnacle here. We're going to learn from Jake, and we're going to tie some magic and what he does into being successful. And so, as an entrepreneur, or even not as an entrepreneur. So, I'm really curious, Jake. You know, what are these 3 steps? These 3 magic steps. Magic steps. I guess I created another dad joke pun there.
Yeah.
Steps of creating a good magic trick that also apply to being successful in anything.
Yeah. So this is really great. If you have a pen or a piece of paper, this is the time to start writing anything down. If you take anything from this podcast, this is it. And really, each of these 3 steps could probably be an episode in and of itself. So I'll run through them real quick, and then we can loop back and expand on things as you see fit. So step number 1, if you want to learn a magic trick, you need to learn the trick. You need to learn the secret. You need to learn how it's done and how it works. And that means you need to admit that you don't know everything. You don't know everything. And so in magic, you need to learn the secret. You need to admit that there's something you don't know. In business, you need to admit a lot of times that you don't know everything. Step number 2, once you've learned the trick, you need to practice it. You need to practice it over and over and over and over again. And so what does that mean? That means you need to develop some sort of consistency. You need to figure out what good habits are for you and establish some way to do those habits, execute those habits on a consistent basis, right? Nobody gets shredded or loses 100 pounds from going to the gym once. It's about going to the gym over time. And the same is true with anything, including a magic trick. You need to practice that thing over and over again, establish consistency. Step number 3, once you've learned the secret and you've practiced it a bunch of times, it's time to execute. It's time to take action and put that magic trick on stage. And sometimes imperfect action is better than no action at all. And so that trick is going to evolve and it's going to get better. And I'm going to get more comfortable in the routine as I continue to do it. But taking that action, putting that trick on stage in the first place is so important. And last but not least, in this last step, in order to do that, you need to learn how to empathize with the audience. You need to know what they are looking for or looking at, and you need to be able to communicate your value to them. And that's all that selling really is. It's communicating your value to somebody else. And so for the magic trick, for that last step to do it, I need to be able to relate to the audience in order to be successful.
Got it. No, those are great. So I guess going back, this is probably going to be a real elementary question for you, but I'm a magician neophyte here. So for you specifically in learning a new trick, where do you learn new tricks from? Right? Because I know there's, magic is a big secret, right? A lot of magicians don't want the secrets out and all that stuff. So where do you go to hey man, I'm going to add some new things to my repertoire here. Where do you go to find those? Where do you go to learn those new tricks?
Well, the exchange of secrets in the magic world is sort of like selling a car in that you're not going to sell a perfectly functional car to somebody who's never going to drive it. And you're never going to give the secret of a magic trick to somebody that is not going to use it and not going to perform it and use it to make magic for other people. And so, magicians, that's sort of how we look at it. But ultimately, if nobody ever gives away any secret, the art form dies because there's no one to learn the secrets and do more magic tricks. Magic is actually the second most published about profession in the history of the world. The only profession with more published works on it is the medical profession. So kind of when you can get behind that curtain there, get involved in the community, there is a ton of information out there and there's more to read than I could ever get through in my entire life, which to me is such an exciting thing because I can always be learning, always be looking to get better.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I didn't know that at all. That's an interesting fact. Again, I guess because I'm just not in that world, in that sphere, I didn't know that. So was it difficult for you as a teenager to find other magicians to teach you some of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started out, took every book out of my elementary school library, read through all of those, went to my local library, read through all of those. And so eventually I wound up going to a couple camps and meeting some magicians. There are organizations, youth organizations, the SYM, if you have a Society of Young Magicians, if you have a kid who likes magic, there's local chapters sort of all over, but it is difficult, especially in the beginning. But once I got to know magicians, you find that it's really a very close community, and it's a community of people who all want to support each other and help each other out, which is amazing.
Yeah. So I guess moving to the second step, so the practicing of it, right? How long would you estimate? And probably different, I'm sure some certain tricks are more complex than others, but what would you say on average? How long do you practice something, or how many times do you have to practice a new trick before you'll actually do it in front of a live audience?
It depends on the trick. And so for me, I create a full routine in two halves. I think of the trick that I want to do, which is the actual, right? Like you pick a card, you put it back in the deck and it disappears. Like the actual, bare bones of the magic trick. And then I think about what I want to say through that magic trick, the message of the trick. And I focus on both of those things individually before I combine them to get to create the product that you see on stage. And so sometimes it could be days, sometimes it could be hours, sometimes it could be months or years. And so I've had tricks that I really like, but I don't know what to say. And I've had really powerful things to say, and I just can't find that trick that matches the energy of what I want to say, or at least sometimes for a little while. And so sometimes things will wind up half finished. As I'm sure we all know, as entrepreneurs, we have those ideas that we think are good. We just jot them down and we come back to it when it makes sense. And the same is true for my process for writing and creating new material.
I gotcha. All right. So moving on to the third step, the execution, the taking action. Along those lines, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. What's been the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you in front of the live audience? I'm sure you've got probably a handful of those, at least. Even with all the practice and all that stuff happens, right? People make mistakes. We all make mistakes. What's been the most embarrassing thing that you can think of that's happening? You're like, oh my gosh, I'll never forget this.
Oh my gosh, we got another episode here because I got a list. I actually tell the story on stage now. One time I was just starting out and I was doing a 5-year-old's birthday party, and I was kneeling down doing a trick with the birthday boy's friend, and the birthday boy jumps up, looks me dead in the eyes, and he walks up and smacks me in the face. And I'm startled. What do you do when a 5-year-old smacks you in the face? You look at the mom. And so I looked at the mom and she goes, "Don't worry. That means he likes you," which it does not. That's not what that means, just for the record. And so I'm like, okay, that's very weird. So he sits down and I'm doing a trick later on and I'm standing up, and all of a sudden, same kid shoots up, looks me in the eyes, and I'm thinking I'm okay. I'm on a different altitude now. I'm standing up, can't get to my face. And he walks up to me and kicks me in the shins. So at that point, I have a little bit of a decision to make. I'm a professional. I'm in their house. It's his birthday. They're paying me. So I did what any rational person would do. And I punted the child across the room. No, not really. But it's super. That was probably high up there, getting smacked in the face by a 5-year-old while performing. That's something I'll certainly never forget.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. You hear comedians talk about hecklers and things like that, I guess now, now that you say that, you got the Will Smith, the Chris Rock thing, you got the Dave Chappelle thing. So,
I was the original.
In front of that, Jake.
I'm a trailblazer. I was the original Chris Rock.
That 5-year-old was channeling Will Smith, whatever that was.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, pretty funny stuff. Well, I guess on the flip side, and again, if you can give it to us in about 20 seconds or so, what's been so far like the most rewarding thing that you've gotten so far out of making magic your life?
Man, I'll tell you a quick story from, I just finished up a tour with the Savannah Bananas baseball team, and I did tricks all throughout the game. Nothing like it's ever been done. It was really amazing. And you could see that in the series coming up this summer, Banana Land. And I did a trick with a younger kid volunteer, and I didn't think anything of it because I do tricks all the time. And afterwards, the mom came up to me and she goes, "I just want to let you know my son has autism, and just to get him to come tonight was such a big deal. And the fact that you did a magic trick with him and made him feel so comfortable, he keeps saying over and over again, 'This was my best night. This was my best night ever. This was my favorite night.'" And those moments when you are able to make an impact on somebody else's life are the most rewarding thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's super powerful. Well, Jake, we're out of time, but I really appreciate you coming on. Again, Jake Schwartz, you can find more on his website, jakeofspades.com. Jake, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
This has been Mr. Biz Radio. To learn how to become part of Mr. Biz Nation, visit MrBizSolutions.com. For access to free weekly content, subscribe to the Mr. Biz YouTube channel and follow him on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. To listen to archive shows, you can find them on the Mr. Biz Solutions website.